It was supposed to be the highlight of my career. After years of hard work, sleepless nights, and personal sacrifices, I had finally earned a promotion at my company. It wasn't just a step up in the professional world, it felt like a personal victory. I was proud of myself, proud of how far I had come. And of course, I was excited to share the news with my family. I had planned the perfect celebration, a party with close family and friends at a nice venue. The night was supposed to be about me, a reflection of my dedication and the reward that had finally come after all these years of pushing myself, a moment for me to shine. But as I walked into the venue, something felt off. The energy in the room was strange. People were gathered around, chatting, but no one seemed to be paying attention to me. The servers were moving back and forth, and everyone seemed to be caught up in their own conversations. I found my mom in the middle of the room, laughing with my sister and a few other relatives. I smiled, walked over to them, and tried to join the conversation. But then my mom said, "Oh, honey, we decided to make tonight extra special. Your sister is going to announce something really exciting." I froze. What? This was supposed to be my night, my celebration. My sister had been a bit distant lately, but I hadn't expected this. Before I could say anything, my sister grabbed the microphone and walked to the center of the room. The crowd quieted, and everyone's attention turned to her. With a huge grin on her face, she said, "Everyone, I've got some big news too. I'm getting married." The room erupted in applause and cheers, and I stood there, dumbfounded. My mom, who had been planning this night with me for weeks, had completely turned it into a celebration for my sister. Her announcement overshadowed mine, and I couldn't believe how easily they had all shifted their focus. My stomach churned. It wasn't just the fact that my sister was getting married, it was the fact that they had taken my moment. I was happy for her, of course, but this was supposed to be about me. For once, I had something to celebrate, something that was mine. As I watched my family cheer and clap for her, I felt a tightness in my chest. This wasn't fair. I had always been the one to support everyone else, my sister's ups and downs, my mom's decisions, my dad's business troubles, and tonight, the one time I needed them to stand with me, they had all turned their backs. I stood there in the middle of the room, trying to suppress the anger and hurt that were building up inside of me. I had spent so much of my life trying to fit into the mold they had made for me, always the reliable one, always the one who sacrificed for others. But in that moment, I realized something. I didn't need their validation anymore. I could feel my heart racing, and without thinking, I grabbed the microphone from the table. Everyone turned to look at me, surprised by the sudden interruption. This was my moment, and I wasn't going to let it pass without saying something. Taking a deep breath, I said, "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. But I have something to say. This was supposed to be my promotion party, my moment. But instead of celebrating me, we're here celebrating someone else's news. And honestly, it's time I take control of this situation." There was a moment of stunned silence as everyone realized what I was about to do. And then I spoke the truth. From now on, I'm no longer the one who takes a back seat. I'm no longer the one who sacrifices for everyone else. This is my time, and I'm done being overlooked. The room was silent. The energy completely shifted. I could feel my pulse racing, but at the same time, there was an odd sense of calm. I had said what I needed to say. The room was so silent you could hear a pin drop. The weight of my words hung in the air, and all eyes were on me. I could feel the heat in my cheeks as I stood there, holding the microphone, my hands slightly trembling from the adrenaline. But I wasn't about to back down now. For years, I had put everyone else first. I had quietly accepted the role of being the reliable, always there person, the one who stayed in the background, letting others shine. I was the one who made sacrifices and never once asked for anything in return. And tonight, on my night, when I had finally earned the recognition I deserved, they had overshadowed me. But not anymore. I took another deep breath, and before anyone could speak, I continued. I've spent my whole life playing second fiddle to everyone else. Every family gathering, every special occasion, I've been the one who stepped aside and let everyone else be the star. And frankly, I'm done. My sister's eyes widened, and I could see the shock in my mom's face as she realized where this was going. But I wasn't stopping now. I had been silenced long enough. "This is my time," I said firmly, my voice gaining strength. "I've worked my butt off for this promotion. I've put in the hours, the energy, the commitment, and instead of being proud of me, you've turned my moment into someone else's. And I'm not okay with that." I turned to my sister, who had been standing off to the side, her excitement from the announcement still palpable in the air. "I'm happy for you," I said, my voice softer but still firm. "I truly am. But you can't just take over my night and make it all about you. That's not how this works." My mom, who had been avoiding eye contact, finally spoke up. "Stephanie, we didn't mean to hurt you. We were just..." "Just what?" I interrupted. "Trying to make it about her instead of me? You don't get to do that, Mom. I needed this. I've been invisible for so long, and I'm not doing that anymore." The room was still, everyone watching in stunned silence. But I could feel something shift in me. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just reacting to everything around me. I was in control. This wasn't about ruining anyone's night, but it was about claiming the space I had earned for myself. "I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and no matter what any of you think, I'm not asking for permission to celebrate my success anymore," I said. "This is my moment, and I'm taking it back." My sister's boyfriend, who had been the one to dismiss me earlier with his smug comment, stepped forward, looking a bit uncertain now. "Look, we didn't mean..." "Yeah, you did," I cut him off. "You had no idea what was going on in my life, and now you've learned the hard way that you can't just walk in and take over. No one's going to let you silence them anymore. Not me. Not anyone." My mom's expression softened, a look of regret crossing her face. "I'm sorry, honey," she said quietly. "We got caught up in the excitement. But you're right. This night was supposed to be about you, and I messed up." I nodded, my chest still heavy with the weight of everything I had said, but at the same time, there was a sense of relief washing over me. I had finally said the things I had been holding back for years. I had stood up for myself when no one else would. "I appreciate that, Mom," I said. "But this isn't just about tonight. This is about me finally taking control of my life. It's about me refusing to be invisible anymore. I've worked too hard for too long to let that go unnoticed." With those final words, I set the microphone down. There was no applause, no cheering, but there was a sense of shift in the room. It wasn't about their validation anymore. It was about me recognizing my own worth. As I walked to the back of the room, I realized something important. I wasn't looking for approval anymore. I had been silent for so long, but tonight I had taken a stand. And in that moment, I knew that nothing could stop me. The world was finally going to see the woman I had become, unapologetic, strong, and ready to take on anything that came my way. The room was still buzzing with whispers as I made my way to the back, away from the center of attention. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, but for once, it didn't bother me. The weight of their gazes felt different now. It wasn't judgment anymore. It was curiosity, surprise, and maybe even a little respect. I couldn't help but feel a rush of empowerment. For the first time in my life, I had spoken up, and the world hadn't fallen apart. I had confronted my family, my sister's boyfriend, and even my own mother, and instead of shying away from the conflict, I had stood my ground. The party didn't quite have the same energy after that. There were still some murmurs, some awkward glances exchanged, but it was clear that things had changed. It wasn't just about the promotion anymore. It was about me finally stepping into my own power. I noticed my mom walking toward me, her face softened with regret. "Stephanie," she said, her voice quiet, "I'm sorry. I didn't realize how much this night meant to you. I should have supported you." I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but something inside me hesitated. Had she truly understood the depth of my pain? I wasn't sure. For so long, I had lived under the shadow of family expectations, always playing the role of the quiet, obedient daughter. But now I was realizing that I needed more than just an apology. I needed respect, acknowledgement, and the space to be myself. "Mom," I said softly, "I know you didn't mean to hurt me, but it wasn't just about this night. It's about how I've felt for years. It's about the times I've been ignored, overlooked, or put on the back burner because someone else had a bigger moment." She took a step closer, her face softening with understanding. "I know, and I'm sorry it took me this long to realize it." It wasn't easy to hear her apologize, but I appreciated it. However, there was still a part of me that wasn't sure if I could fully forgive her just yet. The wounds ran deep, and I knew healing wasn't something that happened overnight. As I looked around the room, I realized something important. I didn't need their approval anymore. I had been validated in my own eyes. I had earned my success, and that was enough. For once, I wasn't seeking anyone's permission to take up space. But the hardest part of all this was yet to come. I had to make peace with the fact that my family might never understand me completely. That didn't mean I had to shut them out, but it did mean that I couldn't continue to place my worth in their hands. The more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This was about me. I had fought my way to this point, and I was no longer going to shrink myself for anyone, even my family. I had put myself first for the first time in years, and now I wasn't going to stop. The night continued, but I didn't stick around for long. As the event wore on, I felt a sense of satisfaction, knowing that I had claimed my place in the world. I wasn't just the girl trying to get by anymore. I was a woman who knew her worth, and no one, not even my family, could take that from me. Walking out of the venue, I felt free. I had no idea what the future would bring, but for the first time, I felt like I could handle whatever came my way. I wasn't alone anymore. I had finally found myself. The days after the party were a blur of emotions. I felt like I had been through an emotional storm, but for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of the aftermath. I had confronted my family, stood up for myself, and let out the frustration that had been building for years. The truth was out in the open, and I no longer felt like I had to hide who I was or apologize for wanting something more. As the days passed, I began to notice a change in myself. I wasn't looking over my shoulder, waiting for someone's approval or validation. Instead, I walked into rooms with my head held high, no longer shrinking into the background. I felt like I was finally owning my space, and it was liberating. But even though I was starting to feel stronger, there were still moments of doubt that crept in. One afternoon, I was sitting at my desk, reviewing some contracts, when I received a message from my sister. Her message was short and to the point. "Can we talk? I think we need to clear the air." My heart sank. After the party, I hadn't heard from her. I assumed she was angry, hurt, or maybe even embarrassed by the way things had unfolded. But now, it seemed like she wanted to make things right, or at least try to. I paused for a moment before responding, knowing that this conversation could go one of two ways. I could continue to harbor resentment, or I could try to have an open dialogue with her. It had taken a lot for me to get to this point in my life, and I wasn't about to let anyone's opinions hold me back. Not anymore. "Sure," I typed back. "Let's meet up." We decided to meet at a small cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the pressure of family dynamics. When I arrived, I spotted her right away, sitting by the window, looking much more vulnerable than I had seen her in a long time. She had always been the confident one, the outgoing sister who never seemed to doubt herself. But today, she looked unsure. "Hi," she greeted me softly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened the other night." I nodded, taking a seat across from her. I didn't know what to expect, but I was ready for whatever was coming. I had to learn how to approach this conversation with an open heart, even though it still hurt. "I know I hurt you," she continued, looking down at her coffee cup. "I didn't realize how much my actions affected you. I was so caught up in my own excitement that I didn't even stop to think about how you might feel. I'm really sorry." I felt a rush of emotions, some of them anger, but most of them were relief. She was acknowledging the pain she had caused, and that was a start. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but I wasn't ready to let go of everything just yet. I had been hurt, and it wasn't going to be fixed in one conversation. "Thank you for apologizing," I said, my voice steady but firm. "But you can't just dismiss my feelings and expect everything to be okay. I've spent too many years trying to please everyone else. I've spent so many years being overlooked, and that night I was finally standing up for myself." She nodded, her face softening. "I get that now. I see that you're not the person I thought you were. You're not just my sister who takes care of everyone. You're strong, and I need to respect that." It was a turning point for us. As much as I wanted to hold on to the past, I realized something important. Forgiveness wasn't just for her, it was for me too. I didn't have to carry that anger with me anymore. I had already taken control of my life. Now, it was time to take control of my relationship with her, not out of obligation, but out of a willingness to heal. "I appreciate that," I said, feeling a sense of peace wash over me. "I don't expect things to go back to how they were, but I want us to try again, to be real with each other, without the expectations and the judgment." She smiled, a hint of relief on her face. "I want that too, Steph." As we sat there talking about our lives, our ambitions, and our differences, I realized that the road to healing wasn't about erasing the past. It was about acknowledging it, learning from it, and choosing to move forward. Our relationship wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that was all I had ever wanted. I left the cafe that day feeling lighter, not because everything was fixed, but because I had taken another step toward reclaiming my happiness. I had come to realize that I was no longer defined by the past. I was defining my future. The days after my confrontation at the party were a whirlwind of emotions. My feelings of anger had subsided, but what lingered was something more powerful, a sense of clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't seeking validation from anyone. I had stood up for myself, and in doing so, I had created a sense of self-respect that I hadn't realized I was missing. My work continued to thrive, and I found myself pouring more energy into my projects, taking on more responsibility at the office. As my career progressed, I also started making more conscious choices in my personal life. I began to distance myself from negative people, including a few family members who had always been more interested in their opinions of me than in supporting me. With my new mindset, I felt like I had the freedom to explore the possibilities I had once thought impossible. The world no longer felt like a place where I was stuck in the shadows. For the first time, I realized that I could make my own choices, and my choices didn't need to align with what others expected from me. But with this newfound strength came an unexpected realization. I was starting to experience feelings of isolation. As much as I had distanced myself from negativity, it sometimes felt like I was pulling away from everything I once knew. My relationship with my sister was still strained, and while we had tried to have a conversation, it wasn't the same as it used to be. The distance between us had widened, and although I wanted to rebuild it, I wasn't sure how to bridge that gap. One evening, as I was working late at the office, I received a text from my mom. It simply read, "Can we talk?" I had been expecting this for weeks. After our conversation at the restaurant, I knew there was more to say, but now, after everything I had gone through, I wasn't sure I was ready to dive back into old family dynamics. I had made peace with myself and the choices I had made, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to open myself up to the same people who had hurt me. Still, something told me I needed to have this conversation. Not for them, but for me. The next morning, I met my mom at a cafe, a neutral ground where we could talk without the weight of family expectations hanging over us. When I walked in, I saw her sitting by the window, looking much like she had when we had that conversation months ago, vulnerable, unsure, but with a sense of determination in her eyes. "Hey, Mom," I said, sitting down across from her. "Stephanie," she began, her voice soft, "I've been thinking about everything, and I realize I never truly understood what you were going through until you spoke up that night." I listened as she spoke, and for the first time, I felt like she was really seeing me. Not as the daughter who always put others first, but as an individual who had a voice, a future, and her own needs. "I'm sorry for not acknowledging your accomplishments," she continued. "I should have supported you more, but I was so caught up in everything else." I nodded, but I wasn't angry anymore. Instead, I realized that I had done the work. I had already forgiven her, not because I was expected to, but because I had come to terms with my own journey. "I've already moved on, Mom," I said softly. "Not just from that night, but from a lot of things. I've realized that I don't need anyone's approval to live my life the way I want to." Her eyes softened, and for a brief moment I could see a flicker of guilt, but also admiration. "You're stronger than I ever realized, Stephanie. I'm proud of you." It was the first time I had truly heard her say that, and as simple as it was, it meant everything. I didn't need to keep seeking validation anymore, not from her, not from anyone. I had validated myself, and that was enough. As we sat and talked about everything, the future, our family, the things we wished we had done differently, I realized that this wasn't about fixing the past. It was about moving forward, together, in whatever way felt right. And for the first time, I wasn't scared of the future. I was ready. I knew now that I didn't have to be defined by the expectations of others. My future was in my hands, and it was up to me to create the life I had always dreamed of. With the weight of my conversation with my mom lifted, I felt a sense of clarity that I hadn't experienced before. It wasn't just about moving forward from the past anymore. It was about choosing my own path in the present. The shift in my perspective was almost palpable. I wasn't waiting for anyone's permission or approval. I was no longer waiting to be seen by others. I had seen myself, and that was enough. At work, my newfound confidence began to show in everything I did. I took charge of projects with a sense of authority that surprised even me. My colleagues, who had once underestimated me, now saw me as a force to be reckoned with. I was no longer just the dependable worker in the background. I was a leader, someone whose ideas were respected and valued. But with this newfound respect came new challenges. The bigger my role became, the more difficult it was to manage. Long hours, endless meetings, and constant decision-making became part of my daily routine. I was living the life I had always dreamed of, but there were days when it felt like too much. I began to notice that the pressure was starting to wear on me. I had taken so much responsibility for everything, not just at work but in my personal life as well. I had neglected relationships and had become consumed with my own ambition. The sacrifices were starting to catch up with me. One evening, as I sat in my office, working on a project that was due in a few days, I realized something. I had been so focused on achieving success that I had almost forgotten about the people who mattered most. I had distanced myself from my friends, from my family, and even from my own well-being. I had been so determined to prove myself that I had neglected the very things that had once brought me joy. The next day, I decided to take a step back. I knew that I couldn't keep up this pace forever. It was time for me to reconnect with what truly mattered, my personal happiness and the relationships I had put on hold. I called my best friend, Maya, who I hadn't spoken to in months. We had drifted apart during my intense focus on my career, but I realized how much I missed her and the carefree times we had spent together. "Maya, I know I've been distant, and I'm sorry," I said when she picked up the phone. "I've been so focused on work that I've lost sight of everything else. Can we meet up?" Her voice softened with understanding. "Of course, Stephanie. I've been waiting for you to reach out. Let's get together soon. I miss you." Hearing those words made me realize how important it was to not let work consume my entire life. Success meant nothing if I didn't have people to share it with. I had already proven to myself that I was capable of achieving my dreams, but now I needed to ensure that I was living a balanced life. I began to make time for myself again. I started exercising regularly, went for long walks, and spent weekends reconnecting with friends and family. Slowly, I began to feel more centered, more at peace. The ambition that had driven me so hard was still there, but now it was tempered by a newfound understanding of what truly mattered. As I focused more on finding balance, I started to realize something powerful. The road to success was not a straight path. It was filled with turns, detours, and moments of self-reflection. And the key to staying on track was learning when to push forward and when to step back and reevaluate. Things weren't perfect. I still had setbacks and challenges, but now I had the tools to handle them. I had learned to stop putting everyone else's needs before mine. I had learned that success was about finding a balance, not about achieving everything at the cost of my own happiness. It wasn't just about being seen anymore, it was about being whole. And that, I realized, was the greatest success of all. As I moved forward in both my personal and professional life, I began to understand something profound. Success wasn't about the accolades, the promotions, or the approval of others. It was about how you felt about yourself, how you treated the people around you, and how you balanced ambition with compassion for your own well-being. The changes I had made over the past few months weren't just about achieving career milestones or proving my worth to others. They were about rediscovering myself. The person I had become, someone who was strong, capable, and independent, wasn't someone I had to prove to anyone. I was already that person. One day, I sat down with my team for a meeting to discuss the company's future. As we talked about new projects, expansion, and growth, I felt a sense of pride that I had never felt before, not because of the numbers on the spreadsheet, but because of the team we had built together. I had created an environment where we valued each other's input, where respect was mutual, and where we all worked toward a common goal. This was what true leadership looked like, not just having authority, but empowering others to succeed. As the meeting concluded, I stood in front of the group and smiled, feeling a sense of deep fulfillment. "I just want to say thank you to all of you," I said. "None of this would be possible without each and every one of you. We're building something together, and I'm proud to be part of it. Let's keep moving forward." There was no grand applause, no over-the-top celebrations. But as I looked around the room at the faces of my team, people who respected me, trusted me, and believed in the vision we were creating, I realized that this was enough. I had already achieved the success I had once dreamed of, but now I had something even more valuable: the respect and loyalty of people who were by my side every step of the way. And then something unexpected happened. My phone buzzed, and I saw a message from my sister. It was a simple message, but one that meant a lot. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, and I want to make things right. Can we talk?" For a moment, I felt a sense of hesitation. It wasn't that I didn't care about my sister, it was just that I had learned to stop chasing after things that didn't serve me. I had learned that my happiness wasn't tied to anyone else's approval. But as I read the message, I realized that I was open to healing, even if it wasn't going to be easy. I replied, "Sure, let's meet up." When we sat down together a few days later, I was surprised by how much had changed. The awkwardness between us was gone, replaced with something more genuine. My sister looked at me with sincerity in her eyes. "I'm sorry, Stephanie," she said quietly. "I've been thinking about everything, and I realize I didn't always treat you the way you deserved. I want to do better." It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. It was the beginning of rebuilding the bridge between us, not because we had to, but because we both understood that family was worth fighting for. As we parted ways that afternoon, I felt a sense of peace. I wasn't seeking anyone's approval anymore. I had already built the life I wanted on my own terms. The best part was that, for the first time, I felt whole. I had learned that the key to real success wasn't just about proving yourself. It was about finding balance, letting go of old expectations, and learning to trust yourself. My journey had been long, and at times painful, but it had led me to this place of confidence and clarity. I didn't need anyone to define my worth. I had already done that for myself. As I walked out of that meeting, I smiled to myself, knowing that my journey wasn't over. It was just the beginning of something even greater. And this time, I wasn't asking for permission. I was taking control, and I was ready to keep moving forward, no matter what.